Seems fair to me.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. Lots of election analysis coming your way. But first, let's meet our panelists, starting with Sarah Fenske, executive editor of the St. Louis Magazine. Bill McClellan from your Post-Dispatch. Joe Holleman from STLtoday.com, and of course the Post-Dispatch. And from the St. Louis American, Alvin Reid, with whom we will begin this post-primary discussion. Alvin, of course, on Tuesday, the big story. I mean, just judging from the international coverage, Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, BBC, Jerusalem Post, Haaretz, all covering Cori Bush's loss to the county prosecutor Wesley Bell in Tuesday's Democratic primary election for the 1st Congressional District. She had a pretty fiery speech afterwards. Even the White House commented on it, saying it was too divisive, overheated, and they said this time when we recently had a former president shot at, it was just over the top. What did you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, on Tuesday, it was like 110 degrees outside, and by Wednesday afternoon, it was like in the mid-70s. That's what politics did on Tuesday. And I think the White House felt that temperature change and said, like, listen, moderation is a good thing. We as a party and the entire nation, but especially the Democratic Party, says, like, we got to moderate ourselves, okay? And we're starting right now. Cori, we're sorry we lost. You lost. We're sorry you lost under the situation that you did with, you know, the APEC money and all that. But Wesley Bell won, and he's going to be the congressman. And we've got to tone it down. We're not going to out-hate this other side. We're not going to out-mad the other side. What we got to do is outvote the other side, and then this is the pragmatic way to go about it. I'm not surprised, and I think it's a wise stand.
Well, in this case, she did say, APEC, I'm going to tear down your kingdom, and I'm going to go after corporations, and I won't have any strings attached anymore because I'm now a free agent. And she also said that Wesley Bell was a sellout, I think referring to the fact that he got a lot of money and decided to take her on.
Yeah, I get why the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, wouldn't love the things that Cori said. What Cori said was very in keeping with Cori. And what happened throughout this campaign is she kind of doubled down on who she was, as opposed to trying to distance herself from some of these remarks that upset a lot of people in the Jewish community and brought out the AIPAC money. And she chose to stay true to who she was, for better or worse. Until the end, there she was. The Democratic Party has never liked her. You know, she's in that squad that they see as trouble and insurgents.
Well, I wouldn't say the whole Democratic Party didn't like her.
Structure. You know, it makes sense to me that the White House spokeswoman is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, they always felt that way about the squad.
Well, you know, as an old-fashioned New Deal sort of liberal, I've never liked Cori, although I've liked AOC. I thought that she's a pretty cool person. Cori Bush just was angry all the time, and you know, she wouldn't talk to the press, she wouldn't talk to the rabbis, she wouldn't talk to the unions. She just had her group of people, and she was just angry. And that's not a winning thing anymore.
I think I know it's easy to say I lost because of AIPAC. And what AIPAC did was shine a light on the reasons that you eventually lost, which is that you alienated virtually all of the Jewish population in your district, and you aggravated a bunch of union workers in your district. Now, did AIPAC shine a light on that? Absolutely. And AIPAC wasn't hiding it. It wasn't like they were working behind the scenes. They came out and said, we're going after anybody who adopted the stance she did about Israel and Hamas on October 8th, one day afterwards. So I think the fact is that I understand being angry. I also understand that she's new to the game relatively, and sort of like Jamal Bowman with the squad. They're not used to losing, and maybe that takes a little practice to become a good loser, if you will.
Let me say
But
this real fast.
they didn't lose. She didn't lose because of AIPAC. She lost about what she did, and AIPAC did a great job of showing it. The bottom line is 6% more people wanted Wesley Bell as their congressperson.
And I think more people, I don't know how we figured this out. I think more black people voted for Wesley Bell than either side could even actually ascertain. I think black people won the election for Wesley Bell.
Okay, now how about the mayor? Tishaura Jones was on stage behind Cori Bush during the concession speech, and she now wonders in social media if she's the next target of AIPAC. She decried the amount of money, $9 million, by the American-Israeli Political Affairs Committee and its super PAC, the United Democratic Project. $9 million. This is the second most expensive primary in the history of American Congress. So it's quite the deal. And she said openly, hey, am I next? Are they going to go after me because I supported Cori?
I mean, time will tell. I mean, you know, again, if you look at what AIPAC is doing, and you know, people always like say, well, that's dark money. It's not dark money. We know exactly who AIPAC is. They are not sneaking around anywhere, and they're saying, if you are coming after Israel, we are coming after you. Now, I think over the period of the next 8-10 months, I'm not sure how much the mayor of St. Louis affects national policy.
I think as these 501c4s, you don't know who the contributors are, correct? So there is a certain amount of anonymity, and that's one of Cori Bush's complaints, that a lot of Republicans are giving money to AIPAC, and the Republicans were supporting.
I understand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can understand why Tishaura Jones is worried.
Oh,
I mean, I think she's still the heavy favorite, but it was that whole black girl magic thing, Cori Bush, Kim Gardner, and Tishaura Jones. And if you're sitting in your office and you're looking at that picture, and there's two of them are gone, she's right to worry.
Absolutely.
I don't think she should be worried. I don't think she's really worried. Of the three of them, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, who's going to be around in politics 8 years from now, and said it's going to be Tishaura. It's not going to be these other two. I mean, that was obvious to me. That still remains obvious. And AIPAC doesn't care about Tishaura Jones.
I think the mayor has an issue. Alvin, doesn't the mayor have an issue if she's supporting a member of Congress who's against Boeing, that's putting $2 billion into the region? Cori Bush says defund the police. She probably coined the phrase. She voted against lead pipes in North St. Louis.
I supported Cori Bush. She lost. She's done. That's over.
Well,
no one
but she
cares.
didn't. She's decrying. She's on social media continuing the conversation.
She's rallying people behind her. I mean, and I keep saying it over and over again. We try to predict what's going to happen 10 months from now in politics. You can't do 10 days in politics and be certain of what you're saying. The idea that Tishaura is going to make sure, hey, are they coming after me next? That's a good political move because now your supporters are like, okay, we've got to watch out for Tishaura.
But does Wesley Bell have an issue since he has a civil lawsuit that's going back into court with depositions in January?
Well, he has a lawsuit. I mean, if that's an issue that's never went away. I mean, I was ready to report on the issue which was supposed to be concluded before the election took place, but because of a death in the family of the attorney representing the plaintiff, the person against Wesley Bell, they had to delay the trial. It was no action of Wesley's. So is that an issue? We'll find out when we find out what the trial says happened. I mean, but yes, he has that issue.
It ain't over.
It's not over.
It's over. Wesley Bell's going to be the congressperson.
There's no doubt about that.
My guess is that Tishaura Jones is going to win re-election. AIPAC is not going to have anything to do with either one of those.
I think the one thing, too, is we talk about very few is Dick Gephardt used to have a saying is there's only two ways to run. You either run unopposed or you run scared. And I think politicians, the smart ones, if they have an opponent, they run scared.
Bob McClellan learned that one.
Yep.
All right, well, Joe, speaking of the St. Louis County, what about Sam Page? He had a bad week because Gretchen Bangert is no fan of Sam Page's. The former state rep, Bangert, won her seat over Nicole Greer. Then we have Shalonda Webb, the longtime nemesis of Sam Page, got resoundingly reelected, 66% of the vote against Rochelle Walton Gray. And in one case, Ernie Trachis, the South County Republican who sided with Sam Page, lost to Michael Archer. So now Sam Page has just one ally on the St. Louis County Council.
I think you can make the argument that if anybody not on the ballot had a bad week, Sam Page had the worst. Not that, you know, and I agreed with what he said when he said 90% of what we do in the county, we all agree on, and I agree with that. But I think what it does is there's not going to be a lot of initiatives that Sam wants to get done. He's going to have to deal with people more and more. Not only, he doesn't have veto power, he doesn't have the majority behind him, so he's going to either have to work with them better than he ever has before, or he will be completely ineffectual until his term is up in 2 years. Okay. I think the bigger question is with the fact that you couldn't get any of your people elected, basically, do you run again in 2 years? I think is the bigger question.
I think Sam Page is going to be fine. I think he had difficulty with this council long before this particular composition. You know, he's had Democrats who can't stand him for a while now, and he still controls this apparatus, the county bureaucracy, all the hiring that he can do, as we've seen. I think there's ways that he's going to be able to get the major things through just as well as he's done up till now, which isn't to say that great, but I don't think things are going to get that much worse than they already are.
Well, let's hope he doesn't do too much more hiring. One thing he's got for him is one of the big issues coming up is going to be an unpopular one, and that's a new administration building. I mean, so I would just as soon slough that off on the county council.
Yeah, make that their problem.
Right. It was the person that he couldn't hire that led to the one, council defeat. Of that 66% that voted for Shalonda Webb, and I'm not questioning anybody's, knowledge or intelligence, but I can guarantee you almost 25% could care less who Sam Page is, and 25% don't know who Sam Page is. So a good 50% of that 66%. It had nothing to do with Sam Page.
Well, I was happy to see that, though.
Sarah, I want to ask you about the governor's race on the Republican side. Mike KeHoe, kind of not exactly a moderate, but compared to Bill Eigel, the lawmaker out of St. Charles, and Jay Ashcroft, the son of the former U.S. Attorney General. With all that name recognition, Mike KeHoe outlasted both of them. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting primary because you have two kind of conservative flamethrowers that I think cut into each other's votes, and that allowed the more centrist candidate to ascend in a state that's not particularly centrist. So it worked out great for Mike KeHoe that these two were going after the same voters. If only one of them had been in the race, I think it would have been a completely different picture. But bigger picture, I think this is, as much as it was a terrible night for Sam Page, I think it was a really good night for Governor Mike Parson. You know, he had 3 different people that he ended up appointing to fill statewide openings. He endorsed all 3 of them to continue on. All 3 of them won, and 2 of these guys were not known at all before he plucked them. This is Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General, and Vivek Malik, the Treasurer. These are people that nobody knew. People said, oh, a guy with a name like Vivek, can he win in Missouri? He absolutely could win, and I think Mike Parson's endorsement is a big reason why.
Well, how about Will Scharf, with all his money, getting clobbered by Andrew Bailey?
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Will Scharf. I think he ran a really aggressive campaign and spent a lot of money. And how interesting that Andrew Bailey, who every lawyer you talk to rolls his eyes, oh, these lawsuits, this guy keeps losing, he's constantly bringing these bad cases, doesn't seem to matter. This man got very handily won this primary.
I just think that the Republicans who were in office were going to win because they were in office. And I think it's kind of like the same as what I said about the people who voted for Shalonda Webb. I don't think they'd vote for, he's the top Republican guy, I see his name. They voted for him.
You think people remember, like, oh, that's the current treasurer, I should vote for him?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I really do. I do. And like with Vivek, like this is the guy who said, ain't nobody named Barack Obama going to get elected president of the United States.
You were wrong.
I was wrong.
I love it.
Well, what about
John Edwards?
John Edwards.
What about on the Democratic side?
He still is.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that, you and him. Well, what about Crystal Quade, who's a 38-year-old social worker, I think, right? She defeats Mike Hamra, a businessman who met payrolls and knows how to run a business, and he loses handily to her.
I was almost as surprised as I was, not surprised, I figured Malik would win. But, there's always the talk of, well, can a person named Vivek Malik win? Can a woman really be nominated over Mike Hamra, well-respected, spent a lot of money, from a family that had been politically active. His dad, who recently passed a little right before the election, was politically active in that Springfield area. I kind of thought Hamra would win, and Quade was so young. I thought this will get her good exposure. but I thought it would probably be Hamra, and I didn't pay much attention, but I did. So I was surprised that she won. I thought she ran a good race.
Post-dispatch endorsement.
Yeah.
Which surprised me. Which surprised me. Democrats like Crystal Quade, I'm telling you all.
I heard that too.
Democrats like her. And she's putting up a good fight down there in Jefferson City, coming out of Springfield, and it's a tough fight, but she's doing it with honor, and she's doing it well, and I've never met the woman. I don't know.
And if rural Missouri listens, if they pay attention, I mean, she talks like a rural Missouri.
Yeah, she does.
You know,
And
she
how
really
about
does.
Democrats apparently like Ray Hartman, former panelist here, who got 77% of the vote in the Democratic primary in the 2nd Congressional District. Yeah. Sarah, let me ask you about the St. Louis Public Schools. The Blythe Bernard of the Post-Dispatch has been, I mean...
She's been on a tear.
She has been cranking out one crazy story after another. One of the more recent ones is that Emily Jane Hubbard, a member of the school board, wants Matt Davis and Tony Cousins, who are leaders on the school board, to resign because they brought all these people in from Seattle and their spouses to work on the company dime, but she also voted for them. So I'm thinking, well, if you voted for it, maybe you should resign too.
Well, I think her letter calling for their resignations, I think it was a really good step for this St. Louis Board of Education. You know, they have been in lockstep. They've had this strange kind of like mind meld over there where unlike any other legislative body I've ever dealt with, they refuse to give quotes as individuals. They say, oh, only the president can speak for our group, and they never allow any dissension to bubble up. I don't think that's good. I don't think it's an effective way to do things. And I think her coming out and saying these two need to resign was pushing back on that things that were just kind of shoved down their throats, the inability to have dissent and to ask questions, that she's saying, yeah, I've done some things I now regret because the culture here has not been good. And so I appreciate her coming out and sort of breaking that sort of groupthink that they all seem to have fallen into.
And I don't think there's a wrong position to hold on the public schools if what you're asking for is a closer look. I will back anybody on that board who says we need to look at. I think everything needs to be looked at. I was pleasantly surprised when Blythe Bernard, a reporter, told me today that Fitzpatrick, the auditor, agreed today to come in and actually do the audit. I hope they go through every book. They check every account. I hope they check everybody's bank account who's on the board. I don't think you can get enough sunshine poured in to what's been going on in the school district for the last 20 years. So anybody who's, whether she should resign or does she have a right to say they should resign, I think everybody should all just call us, let's look at everything. Starts from square one.
I agree. And, you know, the mayor called for this, you know, first, and it's one of those things where, like, the mayor says that we need to audit, even though the mayor, which Francis Slay found out, has nothing to do, technically, with the school district. I don't know this. I'm just saying that I would not be shocked if our school board member we're speaking of, you know, ended up supporting Kara Spencer for mayor. Maybe she's the one that says, like, the mayor's taking the lead on this, like, audit and getting right in there. Can you do something, maybe you know, whatever. And you know what? She may be supporting Mayor Jones all the way. That's just one of the first thoughts that kind of jumped in my head. Why is she doing this after you voted to keep the superintendent on the job? The first person that needed to go is the superintendent.
I think she felt, well, we as a board signed off on all this stuff. Why are we now toppling this superintendent for things she ran past us? I think that was her thinking.
Okay, that's a good thought, Sarah.
And I think she's kind of a true blue progressive. I don't know if she's supporting Spencer or Jones. But
no, I think across the land, boards have gotten lazy, and they don't do their due diligence. Even Tom Villa told me that in his later years, the late, great Tom Villa on the Board of Aldermen, no one was reading the bills. We heard about those complaints in the Clayton School Board. And you know what? $42 million reversal in a budget doesn't happen overnight. A fact that 35% of the teachers in those schools are not qualified to teach.
Oh, that's awful.
So that didn't happen overnight. The transportation problems didn't happen overnight.
Well, actually it did, because the bus company quit and had nuisance.
But don't forget, they were missing all of their routes last year as well.
I'm just saying,
a disaster.
When they just up and quit, that precipitated this situation. It didn't happen overnight, but they were left.
Running buses is not rocket science. Parkway has a great system. They run they hire the drivers themselves. They're all vested with a pension after 5 years, and they've got the buses to take the kids to school.
Well, and I think this also comes too is when you're too busy talking about visions It seems to me that if you run a school district, step one, get the kids to school and have buses that run.
I agree.
So forget any great sounding program you have. It doesn't do any good if a kid can't get on a bus and get to that program, and they're not handling the basics.
Well, it's going to be exciting. It's like Dunkirk. You know, we're going to try to get these students off the beach, and, you know, maybe we'll get 70% of them. And everybody who has a microbus or a van, please go across the channel.
Well,
I mean, it's really...
And the thing is I think what happens is that we as a nation, rightfully so, are so in love with the notion of public schools, because they were indeed one time one of the great signature things of the U.S.
They still are.
Where anybody, I'm looking at in the city, Alvin.
All right,
it's
okay.
not,
Well, you said public schools.
So, but we embrace the public school system as being this infallible entity, and that it's good. So yeah, it's going to have some bumps. The wheels have come off the wagon in the city. So forget what you think public schools in the city can do. Let's look at what they're not doing.
Okay.
And put aside any romantic notions of it.
Well, I still have romantic notions of public schools.
Me too.
What good does that do?
All right, another topic.
Well, what good is it just saying the wheels are falling off?
And fix it. No, I didn't say
Joe,
but
we're
fix
all
it.
saying fix it. I mean, we all say there's problems.
what-
But I think just sitting there and always being down on the public schools is not a good solution.
For 20 years, we've extolled it, and look where we are. How about some hard criticism as to, yes, public schools can be amazing things. Let's get it there.
I hope you interview for the next superintendent job.
I would be happy to.
I'd like to say.
But I probably don't have the qualifications. That's not a problem.
We can waive
That's
Can
not
we
a
work
problem.
around that?
Wait,
Can we
that's
work
not a
around
problem
that?
in St. Louis.
Right.
No, they already gave the job to a woman who was run out of Seattle by the
Well,
union.
hopefully they'll hire within.
I
Well,
have
I
never
don't know.
been thrown out.
Oh, yeah, you and your outsiders. Hey, I'm an outsider, I'll have you know.
Me too. I
So
was
is Sarah.
anytime.
Me too.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Chicago. I want to ask you about Nelly, one of the great performers out of St. Louis of all time, with 3 Grammys and I think 10 American Billboard Awards, and he sold 20, 30 million records. But he was arrested at 3:30 Wednesday morning for not having, I guess, insurance, driver's insurance, I guess, and also drug possession. What do you think about this? The good news for him is he has Scott Rosenblum as his attorney.
Well, he shouldn't need Scott Rosenblum. The idea that they're arresting him because he had an outstanding warrant for failing to have proof of his insurance, that's just ridiculous. I mean, when law enforcement people are supposed to have some judgment. I mean, you don't look at the rules and go, well, we've got to arrest everybody. I mean, the thing to do when you run a warrant check on somebody and you see that they didn't appear for not having insurance, you say to them, sir, I got to tell you, you got to get this insurance thing taken care of, because I bet you really have insurance on your vehicle. I could arrest you, but I'm not going to. I mean, you don't suddenly handcuff a guy and take him in like he's a criminal.
Okay, well, I'm not Marshall Dillon here. 3:30 in the morning at the casino, you have a warrant for not having insurance. Okay, now, I let you go, all right? It's 3:30 in the morning, and you're at a casino. I didn't give you a breathalyzer. You leave here, you run somebody down. My career is over.
Alvin, no,
Right.
this is ridiculous. Bill is so 100% right on this. Yes, I'm appalled that they would feel like they have to take him in and book him over something like not having insurance. If he had killed a person, if it had been driving while intoxicated, totally different.
No,
But if he's carrying 4 ecstasy pills, you let him go drive home?
4 ecstasy pills, I would
you?
take the drugs and let him drive home, 100%. This is not a man trafficking.
This is not a local police department. This is the Missouri Highway Patrol, and they operate differently.
Right.
They
Clearly.
don't
Doesn't make it
smile.
right.
Well, and I don't think this is a heinous crime, but there does seem to have been a solution, and that's that Nelly could have went ahead and appeared in court on the not having insurance and taking care of it. Then we wouldn't have this problem. Oh, but let's ignore that. So yeah.
Come on. I mean, how petty can we get saying this man did not have proof of insurance and a traffic stop a couple months ago and missed the court? we're putting
Hey,
handcuffs
I will
on
say this. With regard to
me a
Nelly,
break.
aside from this infraction, which is not that serious, I think that Joe Edwards or Michael Steinberg or someone who has a venue should have him perform once a month like we used to do with Chuck Berry, and it should be funded by the Tourist Commission so that people around the nation would come here, kind of like, you know, how Billy Joel used to be at Madison Square Garden, but on a smaller level. Why not do that?
I love this, but the Missouri State Highway Patrol would come and like dog him over, oh, you didn't pay a parking ticket. Like, that's why we can't have nice
Well,
things.
why not pay the parking ticket? Whatever happened to just the problem of paying the ticket?
Well, of course you should, Joe.
okay,
Of course.
all right.
Everybody should be perfect about this stuff.
Okay,
but people
Bill,
aren't.
Bill and Alvin.
I mean, I've been
We're
bad on having
Many
proper
things.
insurance back in the old days.
among other infractions. Would you please say a nice word for our retiring colleague, Sharon Haskins, who after 24 years of greeting people at the front door at 3655 Olive Street and also answering calls on Next Up and Your Turn, has decided to hang it up. And so we wish happy retirement to you, Sharon Haskins.
Oh, she is great, and she was so much fun, and she always had something good to say, and she, her grandson, I remember when he was starring on the football team at University of Michigan, and now he's on the Rams, and I hope Sharon takes a lot of time and just takes it easy and watches football this fall.
Long before any of the current administration of the 9 Network was here, and I was just like a guest, that you all used to be, and I wouldn't get paid in a while. I would call, and she recognized my number and said, like, Alvin, I'll check on your check, okay? And I couldn't even say, thanks, Sharon.
We're going to leave it at that this week. And so, do we go to the mailbag or do we say goodnight? Let's go to the mailbag. Elliot Davis for County Executive 2026. Thank you, Tom Sullivan of University City. You can write us at that address, and we love the email as well as the social media. Don't forget to call the 9 line. There's that number, and listen to us on your favorite podcast source. There you have it. That's it for this week's program. Again, we salute you, Sharon Haskins. Thanks for all you did. And everybody else, we'll see you next week.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.